Mary Jane, would you like to kick us off?
Hi, I'm Mary Jane. Kicking this off, it's been mentioned by a few of the speakers today. From my perspective, I want to see a problem being solved. That's not quite enough. It needs to be a problem that people know they have and that they are prepared to solve. A lot of business ideas miss that. It's good to do something smart as well, something clever, something defensible. But it's important to articulate the commercial value of that smart idea. And Colin suggested something controversial. My controversial point would be a lot of universities overestimate, have unrealistic ideas of the value of their research.
Yep. Well, since there's six of us, we don't want to tread on each other's toes. I'm going to pick up from the warm-up of the Crossing the Chasm book. That book was published in 1990, and I read it, and I realized that I'd just been through it. I sold my company at the end of before the chasm, just before the chasm. I didn't know that at the time until I read the book, but it's an extraordinary book. And I'd actually taken, earlier in the 80s, I'd taken a piece of AI technology from Edinburgh University to Microsoft, and Bill Gates rocked back and forward and said, yeah, you can sell 1,500 of those. And what he meant was, there's 1,500 early adopters who will buy this, and nobody else. And he was absolutely right. So that book explains what you should do if you're a technology startup company, and the exit is just before the chasm, and you're looking for a large corporation who wants your innovation, and they want to buy you. And you've got to argue the price up, because you won't have any sales at that point. So you have to argue that you're worth an awful lot more than any sort of PE measure or anything like that. But the Crossing the Chasm is exactly the right model to adopt for a lot of technology startups. Because if you're not capable of building a massive global sales and marketing organization, you'll need somebody else to do it, and that's the right time to exit. If you don't want to do that, there's a follow-up book called Into the Tornado that I would recommend, but that takes a lot more money.
Very good. So my background is in sales and the commercial side of B2B technology. So absolutely relate to the Crossing the Chasm and Inside the Tornado, which I can think of from an American electronics company I work with. But of new books, if we're on a book theme, I think Disciplined Entrepreneur, Bill Owlett, is a really good model for a budding entrepreneur to follow. And so I've been involved in corporates, and I've done my own startups, and I've failed very badly with those, and I've also managed to get one to a successful sale. But my focus, I guess, increasingly is on looking at things from the customer point of view. So less controversial is, I think, always try and get inside the head of the customer. And the customer is always thinking, what's in it for me? So remember with them. And it doesn't matter what it is they're doing, whether it's a simple app of how to catch a bus or it's a super clever bit of speech recognition. The customer is thinking, what's in it for me? And what's getting them interested is often not what you think is the most exciting thing about the technology. So have your radar tuned to that. I think getting more towards the controversial is you haven't got a business until you've cut an invoice and you've made some sales. Before that, it's a research project, whoever's funding it, whether it's angels or research grants. And the final point is I'm no big fan of unicorns in whatever shape, size, or color they come at. So I'd try and remember to be a bit more pragmatic, think about the customers, get some revenues, worry about the valuation afterwards.
So Angela Mathis, think tank Maths. You'd be surprised if I didn't talk about its people and people. It's the attitudes of those. I think, whether it's the partners you're bringing in, talked about finding the right partners to work with, finding the right staff to work with, finding those customers that are, we in our company, because you can say we want to make sure that there's a market, but if the old adage, which was Henry Ford said if he'd asked people did they want a car or what kind of mode of transport, they would have said they wanted a faster supersonic horse. They wouldn't have actually said an automobile. So sometimes you don't have that luxury, and I think a few of us talked about this. The AI code plays conundrum as well. You're going in. So what you've got to strip it down to is, and for us, we call our clients, they are mature. We like them to have tried hard several times. Usually they've gone to the most obvious place to find someone in the world who usually solves this kind of problem, maybe in an academic institute somewhere, and they've burned their fingers because that's not enough. It's not outside the box enough, and the problem has actually a level of complexity that there's nothing that exists really does it. And that's kind of where we are, but that's where our project is. But I think, so you get these mature clients, and also then they will know what the value of the problem is to them. And so you're also trying to find out how much you can charge them for it, and try and do, obviously, pricing to value if you can. So about the team and about the people you bring in, you really are, I think, to be ahead of the game. I think all of the examples I gave are about, it's not impossible. If you examine the landscape, you examine the ecosystem, there's an ally somewhere. I call this change champion that you're going to find, or group that you're going to find, a project champion inside a company, make sure that they're big enough. I mean, I think we were looking at the chasm. You'll have these innovators, you'll have these people that have a problem, and then you're trying to get that, get across that and get to the main market, make sure it becomes, whatever you're offering becomes part of the set game. For us, we never went for institutional finance. We probably lucky in that sense, but we did have some grants in the beginning, smaller grants, but we really funded the business through client money, and that was we didn't go for the let's get $1 million and sit back, because we felt that just was kind of a lazy way of doing it, to be honest. And go out, get customers, get people on board, even if it's and test out the market that way. And if you get clients and you survive, we're 12 years later, and you're actually making headway, then I think that's proof that you've maybe take longer to get there, but it is proof that you've actually got a market to go after, and you haven't just I think if you're going to scale afterwards, you might look to bring capital in or bring a partner in. Partner, wrong word, but bring someone in who will actually work with the company, take it maybe to the next level. That's kind of our view.
Cool. So Marcus Henderson, Investment Director at Mercio Technologies. There's obviously a lot of factors, but to keep it simple, the sort of three key things that I'm looking for are great team. Ideally a team that's experienced, they've been there before, but that's not always the case. In terms of team, to me there are three key areas which you're looking to have in your team. You have to have people who can build the tech, they can build the product. I mean, that's fundamental. You need to have people who can sell it if you're going to create a business, and then you need to have people who can look after the money and make sure it doesn't get spent and it doesn't disappear. So those are the sort of key elements of the team that you're looking for, broadly speaking. Beyond that, have to have a great product. So you have to have good technology. It's amazing how often people come to us with a pitch and they don't have a product, or the product doesn't work. So that's fundamental. Without a product, you've got nothing. And then finally, a good market. Somewhere that you can sell your product into. Without that, again, you can't create a business. Lots of things dictate a good market, but fundamentally, ideally for investors, we want to see a big market. We want to see a market that's hot. So potentially a market where strategics might be wanting to buy technology to be a part of it at high multiples, high premiums. So I mean, very simple. There's a lot more to it than that, but those are some of the key elements that we're looking for.
Hello, I'm Neil Heywood. To follow on the theme, I spent 10 years as non-exec chairman of Andrew Richard's company, so I guess I shared on part of that journey. I guess we should have both read the book at the same time. Hindsight's an easy thing. We were asked what we were looking for, and I was going to say flexible thinking, because I think when you look back at the early stages of successful companies and what they were like then, they were nothing like what they became. They aren't doing the same things usually. Or what they thought was a really clever IP turned out to be, in the end, a commodity bit. and a tiny part of the overall solution. And whether they grow to be the whole solution or whether they remain the bit that sells the commodity IP for maybe 5% of the value is perhaps a lot to do, I think, with being flexible enough to change what you really thought at the start. But I now think that that's really emotional intelligence, so it's going to a meeting and realizing that somehow this isn't quite going the right way. And why isn't it going the right way? And often people are too polite to tell you, or they think you know, or they don't want to tell you. And you've got to figure out a way of that. I very often had people tell me, the founders, say that actually it's just the customer's wrong. And that if we just meet a customer who's right, it'll be fine. And you need determination, and you do need to ignore negative things, but sometimes you have to start thinking that your preconcepts are wrong. And I think emotional intelligence is really key to that. And sort of on a positive note, you can actually improve it or get round the fact that you don't have it. It's not it's not as fixed a thing as people think. But that ability to figure your way through a meeting is key.
Good. Thanks, folks. That's a very good masterclass of where the problems sit here. So, do we have questions from the floor? Yep.
Just a question to the whole panel, actually. Out of the investment opportunities that you've looked at to date, what percentage of them had purely university-based founders, and how successful were they in making it through, gaining investment from you?
So what percentage had university founders? In other words, what's the problem in dealing with academics? Right? Mary Jane.
I worked for Archangels for 6 years, and Archangels focuses very much on many university spin-outs have found their way to the Archangels portfolio. So that's an area that they very much focus on. Now, on the whole, a 100% academic team is not going to deliver. And very often, what would happen, the academic would come and speak to Archangels quite early on when they were thinking about creating a business. And we would say, go off and speak to this person. They have commercial experience in the area that you're currently working in. Have that conversation and then come back and see us when you're ready for investment. And in one instance, the chief exec, the founder academic, came back 2 years later, and they were ready for investment, and they were invested by Archangels. But it was only thanks to that conversation, the learning, the interaction with the individual who had previous startup experience, had commercial sales experience, and could actually deal with a lot of the questions, the points that have been raised by the panel.
Ian, you've done a lot with various little academic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fundamental problem with spin-outs from academia, and that's you do some very advanced research, and then you're kind of looking for a hole that your plug fits, and that's kind of the wrong way around. So you should be looking for a market need, and then finding the technology that fits that market need. So quite often, and really Neil's already said it, but quite often, in fact, more often than not, companies have to pivot. You start off going down a certain path. I remember I was on a mentor for an enterprise fellowship, and a guy had a technology from Heriot-Watt University for Legionnaire's disease, and he started applying it, and he discovered actually the customer didn't want that, they wanted another technology, and he then bought that other technology and applied it. So his original technology wasn't, in fact, what he built the business out of. And I think that's important, is to listen to your customers, hear what they're saying, and don't pretend that, the customers got it wrong, because they usually haven't.
Marcus, you got any thoughts there? 'Cause I know Mercia do quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually spending more and more time with university projects and trying to help some of them come through and commercialize and spin out. The difficult piece is the commercialization, and I suppose, the differences of working in a sort of a harsh commercial environment. The university world is probably a lot nicer and a lot safer than the stresses of a startup company. So making sure that you're in the right headspace for that. Yeah. And then, bringing in, people with experience that can help some people avoid some of the obvious pitfalls and mistakes. But you need to have the right gel of personalities, and finding sort of academics that can work with commercial people, and finding commercial people that can work with academics, that can be quite tricky, because it is very much a team effort. But, there's certainly some amazing technology and IP being developed, and so there's a huge opportunity to do more. So, very optimistic about potential.
Yeah, I'm on the board of the Scottish Institute for Enterprise, and it's just something you said there sort of triggered in your reaction. One of the things that, and it's your fault that I'm still on the Scottish Institute for Enterprise, but one of the things is that we've got to be careful of, and I'm always saying this on SIE, is, let's not, I think we all said it's, if you saw the presentation, the kinds of challenges you face, it's a daily, hourly roller coaster. It is not an easy ride. You don't get, you can get rich within 2-3 years if you've got the right idea and you hit that jackpot. But this idea of kind of promoting that start your business, it's going to be really easy, and it's great to do. But realize, and I think that's really the bit that we've got, that we try to do, is to say you've got to be absolutely, get out of bed in the morning. You cannot get out. And I think when we're talking about academics, I've always worked with those two. If you're getting out of bed and what you're worried about is your lecture, and you're actually, you're still within academia, and you're not getting out of bed and thinking about how do I get this sale today, or how do I, get this deal, you're against people that are getting out of bed and are focusing on the business. So, you're either out or you're in, but I don't think you can be in both. And I think this is one of the things within SIE we try to encourage people. You're either an entrepreneur and trying to go for this business, or you're staying within academia. But if you're trying to go for a professorship and do this at the same time and hedge 2 bets, then nobody's going to invest in you and you're not going to succeed.
Good point. Philip?
I was just going to add in to that, is that in my mind it's a kind of it can come down to a simple binary decision. If you can answer positively the question, are you prepared? If you didn't have any of the research funding and so on behind you, but you believe so much in this concept or this idea and so on that you're just going to go for it anyway, then that's the kind of level of commitment that you're probably going to need to succeed, particularly if you are going to go it alone or try and lead it. If you don't have that inner drive, then, to your point, you need to find a teammate or two who do have that. They're complementary skills of someone with that kind of commercial drive behind them, who can then help make it happen.
Neil, you got anything to add before we go to the next one?
Well, on that last point, I think people who've been successful, I think they always say if they'd known how hard it was going to be, they would have done it. Really sure where that gets you. You certainly got to be very driven to do it. It's a hard journey. I guess I think almost all the companies I've been involved with and seen, I think of them as university companies, but I think this distinction of, not distinction, but academia versus not academia, I hadn't really thought of it that way, because lots of companies I know, I thought of as coming out of university, but I don't think as a university you might think, well, they're not really academics, or they're students, is that the same thing? Universities have provided just about everything for all the startups that I've come across, so I think it's a prerequisite.
We shouldn't be so negative. I mean, it might be hard, but it's great fun. Doable. It's great fun. It's a lot more fun than staying in a university. Yeah. Believe me.
Or working for someone else.
It's just a huge red flag for most investors.
Yeah.
And you're asking us, so it's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Mike, you've got 30 seconds.
So 5 seconds. sounds like such a hard thing to do. Why would any sane person do it?
Yeah. Because it's great fun. You know, really, I mean, you know, there's nothing better. I mean, it's better than sex, it really is. You get a big order from IBM or something, and Jesus Christ, it's fantastic, you know? And you want to just be I mean, it's the old thing that Steve Jobs asked, what's his name, you know, do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Yeah. Do something meaningful, change the world, put a dent in the, you know, in the world.
Yeah, if you've got that drive to do it, it is fun. It's very hard, and you have setbacks, but you will in all walks of life. But it'll just be that itch that you never scratch. So get on and give it a go. And it might not turn you into a millionaire or a billionaire, but you might get a lot of satisfaction out of it and enjoyment.
Yeah, ditto. I think, you know, want to get out of bed in the morning and kind of make that difference. Know that you're making a difference. The whole thing to play for, your entire team, every meeting you have, I still pinch myself and think, you know, I'm on this plane to see the biggest oil company in, you know, the Northern Hemisphere, and this wouldn't be happening if we hadn't sort of stuck with this and created it. And that's the buzz. And also when you see the capabilities and the technologies you're doing impacting the way the European Space Agency works, or, you know, working with the Bank of England on financial stability. I mean, who the hell gets the chance to do that in their everyday life? And you kind of need to remember that when you're having a bad day and think, you know, I could be doing something much less stimulating, much less interesting, and not have a bank of stuff to look back on as what I've already achieved. So it's, and our team has already achieved. It's great.
Hey, Jane?
I think it's the actual drive to see your research recognised by everybody, not just your peers, and understanding the significance of your research and its value and application. And I think before you've worked out how exciting it is, which you don't know until you've tried, I think that would have to be the motivation to make the decision.
Marcus?
I mean, if it was easy, I suppose you wouldn't be creating the value. So it's about the rewards, isn't it? You know, you put in that hard effort and you apply, you know, some skill and some talent, you know, you get the rewards. Without doing that, you know, you're not going to get very far. So to me, that's why it's worth doing it.
Neil, do you want to? You get a chance for the last great revelation.
I should say, my first startup came because Colin's company, and Colin specifically, bought the company I worked for. And my group said, we're leaving. We never thought about it. As we spent an hour, we spent 5 seconds. You didn't buy us for our group, I should say. It's not our criticism.
Correct. We were very, very good at helping you out.
That's right. and there was a certain amount of, well, we're off then. And that's how we started our first compiler company, or first spin out. And so, in some senses, it was an accident. We were pushed. And it was an easy choice in that we had nothing to lose. So we're not the same as people who are giving up a good job, a safe job, or whatever. I think it's you're taking advantage of an opportunity. The brave ones, I think, are ones who are giving up everything, mortgaging their house. I was not in that position. My grandmother lent me £5,000 that she didn't expect back. So you take advantage of an opportunity that's there, and it is exciting.
Good. Thank you, panel. And
so thank you, Colin.
It's time for the next piece. Thank you.